The first thing Vanessa Mensah noticed when she walked into the Seoul Police Academy's Violent Crimes Unit was how quiet it was. Too quiet. For a place that dealt with some of the city's darkest cases, she expected more noise. Phones ringing, officers barking orders, papers flying everywhere. Instead, everything was in order. Desks aligned in neat rows. Files stacked as if placed with rulers. Computers humming softly. And then her eyes landed on him. Detective Kim Sangwoo. He was exactly as the rumors described. Tall, broad-shouldered, with a sharp jawline that looked like it had never cracked a smile. His black hair was neatly parted, his shirt pressed without a single wrinkle. He stood by his desk, flipping through a file with the precision of a surgeon. When he finally looked up at her, his gaze was so cold it sent a shiver down her spine. "Recruit Mensah?" His voice was clipped, efficient, as though every word was calculated. "That's me," Vanessa said brightly, adjusting the blazer. "Vanessa Mensah. Straight from Ghana to Seoul. Fresh blood for the unit." She flashed a smile. Sangwoo blinked once. No smile. No nod. Just silence. Vanessa tilted her head. "Do you always greet people like a block of ice, or am I just lucky?" A faint twitch moved at the corner of his mouth. Whether irritation or amusement, she couldn't tell. He closed the file and handed it to her. "We have a missing persons case. A 22-year-old college student. Disappeared 2 nights ago. We start now. No coffee first? No welcome tour." His eyes narrowed. "This isn't a vacation." Vanessa smirked. "Oh, I figured that out the second you looked at me like I'd just broken a crime scene." They left the station, the air outside biting with late autumn chill. Vanessa walked with her usual confident stride, hands shoved into her coat pockets, while Sangwoo moved like a shadow beside her, silent and focused. The missing persons dorm was their first stop. Vanessa scanned the room filled with posters, books, and scattered notes. "Typical college girl stuff," she muttered, picking up a photo frame. "She looks happy here. Definitely not the type to run away." "You can't determine that from a photo," Sangwoo replied, already inspecting the closet. "We rely on evidence, not feelings." "Well, excuse me, Mr. Evidence," Vanessa shot back. "But sometimes feelings lead you to the truth faster than your fancy fingerprint kits." He didn't respond, only continued his meticulous search. Vanessa sighed, then turned to the roommate, a shy girl hovering by the door. Vanessa softened her tone instantly. "Hey, I know this is scary. Can you tell me the last time you saw her?" The roommate's eyes flickered nervously. She said she was going to meet someone. But she didn't say who. "I thought it was just a friend." "Did she seem worried? Excited?" Vanessa asked gently. The girl hesitated. Nervous. Like she didn't want me to ask too many questions. Vanessa gave her a reassuring smile. "Thank you. That helps a lot." When they stepped outside, Sangwoo crossed his arms. "You wasted 10 minutes coddling her. That detail isn't solid enough to use." Vanessa raised an eyebrow. "Coddling? That girl just gave us the biggest clue so far. Nervousness means whoever she was meeting wasn't just a friend. It was someone important. Or it means nothing. People get nervous all the time." Vanessa threw her hands up. "Do you ever listen to yourself? If everyone thought like you, half the crimes in this city would stay unsolved." He gave her a sharp look. "And if everyone thought like you, emotions would cloud every judgment. Facts don't lie." "Well, facts don't smile either," she muttered. The case led them next to a cafe near the campus, where the missing girl had last been seen. Vanessa charmed the barista with a few words of Chui mixed with Korean, earning a laugh and a quick willingness to share information. "She came here around 9, the barista said, pointing to a corner table. "Met a man. Tall, wore a cap. She looked uncomfortable. Then they left together." Vanessa leaned closer. "Did you hear anything they said?" "Just one word. He called her Jion." "That's not her name, right?" Vanessa's eyes widened. "No, it isn't." When they returned to the station, Sangwoo pieced together CCTV footage, matching the barista's description. Vanessa leaned over his shoulder, far too close for his liking. "See, my coddling paid off," she teased. "Now we know he called her Jion, which means he probably mistook her for someone else, or wanted her to be someone else." Sangwoo ignored her smug tone and pulled up a record. Jion, a name linked to a stalker case 3 years ago. The suspect was never caught. Vanessa whistled. "So our missing girl got tangled up with a man obsessed with someone else. That's motive if I've ever seen one." They tracked the suspect to an abandoned building on the city's outskirts. The tension was thick as they moved through the dimly lit halls. Vanessa gripped her flashlight tightly, heart pounding. You ready? She whispered. I was born ready, Sangwoo replied coolly. They found the girl tied up but alive, eyes wide with fear. The suspect lunged at them, but Sangwoo's quick reflexes pinned him against the wall. Vanessa rushed to untie the victim, speaking softly to calm her. When the girl was safe, Sangwoo cuffed the suspect with clinical efficiency. Vanessa glanced at him, panting. Well, Iceman, looks like your facts and my feelings made a pretty good team. He didn't look at her. You let your emotions take over at the scene. That could have gotten you hurt. Vanessa rolled her eyes. You're welcome, by the way. She'd still be terrified if I hadn't spoken to her like a human being. He finally met her gaze, expression unreadable. You're too emotional for this job. And you, she shot back, are too frozen to see the human side of things. For a moment, silence hung between them, heavy and unspoken. Then Sangwoo turned away, leading the suspect towards one of the police cars parked outside. Vanessa sighed, shaking her head but smiling to herself. She had a feeling this was only the beginning. The following morning, the briefing room was buzzing with low voices when Vanessa strolled in, tossing her notebook onto the table with a flourish. Detective Kim Sangwoo was already there, of course, sitting stiffly with his arms crossed, eyes fixed on the whiteboard like it might solve the case for him. Art thefts. Vanessa arched a brow at the photos pinned on the board. Paintings, sculptures, glittering antiques. Wow. From missing college girls to Picasso knockoffs. I see we're moving up in the world. This isn't a joke, Sangwoo said flatly, his gaze never leaving the board. Vanessa leaned back in her chair, smirking. Relax, Iceman. I know it's serious. I'm just saying, finally, something glamorous. For once, I get to wear heels. Captain Jung cleared his throat, glaring at both of them. The thieves are professionals. They target high-end galleries, posing as wealthy collectors. We need people on the inside. Which is why, his eyes flicked between them. You two will be going undercover as an art dealer couple. Vanessa burst out laughing. Us? A couple? Oh, this is rich. Sangwoo's jaw tightened. I don't see what's funny. You don't see a lot of things, she shot back with a grin. But fine. Let's play house detective. Later that evening, they walked into one of Seoul's most prestigious galleries. Vanessa was radiant in a red dress that turned heads as soon as she entered, her black hair pinned elegantly, her eyes sparkling with mischief. Sangwoo, in a sleek black suit, looked every bit the part, except for the fact that his stiff posture screamed cop. Loosen up, Vanessa whispered through a smile as they approached the first exhibit. You look like you're about to arrest the paintings. I don't loosen up, he muttered, scanning the room. She sighed dramatically. All right, then at least pretend you like me. You're supposed to be my husband, remember? Without waiting, she slipped her arm through his, pressing close. There. Much better. He stiffened. This isn't necessary. Oh, it's very necessary. Couples don't stand 2 feet apart like they're allergic to each other. She patted his chest. Now smile. Or at least try not to look like you're plotting a murder. The corners of his lips twitched, almost imperceptibly, but he said nothing. As they mingled, Vanessa charmed the gallery's elite effortlessly. She laughed at jokes, complimented art pieces she barely understood, and even managed to get the attention of their main suspect, Mr. Han, a slick businessman with too much money and too little scruples. You have a very discerning eye, Mr. Han said, handing Vanessa a glass of champagne. Thank you, she replied warmly, gesturing to Sangwoo. My husband and I have been looking to expand our collection. Haven't we, darling? Sangwoo gave a curt nod. Yes. Vanessa pinched his arm discreetly. Darling, she repeated sweetly, through clenched teeth. Yes, darling, Sangwoo corrected, voice so wooden it almost made her laugh. Mr. Han chuckled. A devoted man. Rare these days. Devoted, yes. And very shy, Vanessa added, her smile dazzling. Later, as they slipped away to follow Mr. Han toward the back hall, Vanessa whispered. Seriously, you're terrible at this. Has anyone ever told you that you don't know how to act human in public? Sangwoo gave her a sidelong look. I'm not here to act human. I'm here to catch criminals. She rolled her eyes but grinned. Well, lucky for you, I'm here to make us look believable. So stand still. Before he could react, she reached up and straightened his tie, her fingers brushing against his chest. For a brief second, their eyes met, his dark and unreadable, hers playful but with a flicker of something softer beneath. The air tightened between them, but then footsteps echoed in the corridor, and the moment was gone. They followed Mr. Han into a crowded private showing. The room was buzzing with chatter, and as they pushed through, someone stumbled roughly into Vanessa, nearly knocking her off her heels. Sangwoo's arm shot out instinctively, steadying her and pulling her close against him. "You all right?" he asked quietly, his hand lingering at her waist. Vanessa blinked up at him, surprised by the concern in his voice. "Yeah. Thanks, Iceman." She smirked faintly. "Didn't know you had reflexes outside of punching suspects." He let go quickly, his expression returning to stone. "Focus." But the faint warmth in his ears betrayed him. The operation nearly unraveled when one of Han's associates grew suspicious, questioning their background. Vanessa, without missing a beat, launched into an elaborate story about their honeymoon in Paris and their shared love for Monet, complete with hand gestures and a laugh that could convince anyone she was telling the truth. The associate narrowed his eyes. "And where was your last exhibition?" Sangwoo's mind raced. Before he could answer, Vanessa jumped in smoothly. "Busan. Just last month. My husband gave the opening speech. He's brilliant, so modest though." She squeezed his hand under the table. "Darling, tell him about it." For a split second, Sangwoo froze. Then, surprising even himself, he leaned forward and spoke calmly about brush techniques and stolen motifs, quoting details he'd memorized from the case file. His steady delivery sold the lie. The associate nodded slowly, satisfied. As the meeting ended and their suspect moved on, Vanessa exhaled in relief. "That was close. You almost froze." "But I didn't," Sangwoo replied, adjusting his cufflinks. "Your improvisation was reckless, but effective." Back at the station later that night, Vanessa kicked off her heels and collapsed into a chair. "Well, that was fun. See, not all cases have to be doom and gloom. Sometimes you get champagne and diamonds." Sangwoo sat across from her, his usual mask in place. But then, unexpectedly, he said, "You're not as reckless as I thought." Vanessa blinked, then grinned. "Wow, that almost sounded like a compliment." "It was." Her smirk widened. "And you're not as boring as I thought." For a long moment, they just looked at each other, the silence between them carrying something unspoken. Then Vanessa laughed softly, shaking her head. "Careful, Iceman, keep talking like that, and people might think you actually like me." Sangwoo said nothing, but the faintest trace of a smile tugged at his lips as he turned back to his files. Vanessa leaned back in her chair, her grin refusing to fade. She had a feeling things were about to get even more interesting. The precinct was quieter than usual on Monday morning, the hum of the vending machine the only sound filling the room as Vanessa stretched lazily at her desk. She was still buzzing from the high of their last case. Going undercover had been fun, and even Sangwoo, stiff as he was, had shown flashes of humanity. She smirked at the memory of him actually calling her not reckless. That was practically a love poem coming from him. But the smile slipped when Captain Jung appeared, dropping a thin file onto their table. "New case. Handle it carefully. The neighborhood's watching." Vanessa leaned forward, flipping the folder open. A boy's face stared back at her, round cheeks, dark eyes brimming with fear. "A teenager?" she muttered. 17, Jung said. "Accused of assaulting a shopkeeper. Witnesses back up the shopkeeper's claim. The community's already tense. I need this handled by the book." Sangwoo gave a single nod. "Understood." Vanessa frowned, tapping the photo. "Look at him. He doesn't look violent, he looks terrified. There's got to be more here." Sangwoo's eyes stayed on the file. "It's simple. Take statements, confirm evidence, close it. Simple." Vanessa shot back, disbelief lacing her voice. "A boy's life could be ruined. You don't call that simple." He finally looked up, his tone clipped. "Don't let feelings cloud your judgment. We're not here to speculate. And you're not here to hide behind your rulebook," she snapped. "This isn't just paperwork. This is someone's future." Their eyes locked across the desk, heat crackling in the silence. Vanessa could feel her pulse rising, but she refused to back down. Sangwoo's face was a wall of stone, but beneath it she caught something like hurt. They went first to the shopkeeper, a man in his 50s with a fresh bandage on his arm. He spoke bitterly, waving his hands as he recounted the incident. "That boy attacked me out of nowhere. Violent, dangerous. Kids these days, no respect." Sangwoo wrote every word neatly in his notebook, his expression unreadable. Vanessa, however, watched the way the man's eyes darted, the tremor in his voice when she pressed. "Was there an argument first?" she asked, leaning forward. The man stiffened. "No, he just attacked. That's all you need to know." Outside, Vanessa crossed her arms. "He's lying." "You don't know that," Sangwoo countered. "Yes, I do. I saw his hands shaking." He's hiding something. That's speculation, Sangwoo said evenly. Speculation doesn't hold up in court. Her frustration boiled over. Why do you always shut yourself off? Why do you act like rules are more important than people? You're so afraid to take risks that you can't even see the truth when it's right in front of you. His jaw tightened. For a moment, his mask slipped, pain flashing in his eyes, but then it was gone. And you let your emotions control you. That's dangerous. You'll get yourself or someone else hurt. The words cut deep, but Vanessa refused to flinch. At least I feel something. You're so frozen. It's like you've forgotten why we wear the badge at all. The tension between them was sharp enough to cut glass, and for the rest of the day, their silence carried the weight of unspoken words. It wasn't until they interviewed the boy himself that the cracks began to show. He sat trembling in the holding room, his hands gripping the edge of the table. His voice was barely a whisper. I didn't mean to hurt him. He came at me first. I just wanted him to stop. Stop what? Vanessa asked gently. The boy swallowed hard. He was harassing a girl outside his shop. She looked scared. I told him to leave her alone. That's when he hit me. I just reacted. His eyes filled with tears. No one believes me. Vanessa's chest ached. She glanced at Sangwoo, silently daring him to dismiss it. He said nothing, only clicked his pen once, eyes cold. But later, as Vanessa paced outside the precinct, her determination sharpened. I don't care what you say, Sangwoo. He's telling the truth. We can't prove it, he replied flatly. Then let's find proof, she snapped. Or are you too afraid to look because it means admitting you were wrong? He glared at her, but something in his silence told her she'd struck a nerve. Back at the shop, Vanessa scoured the alley until her eyes landed on a small security camera tucked under an awning. Her pulse quickened. Sangwoo, over here. Together, they pulled the footage. Grainy, but clear enough, it showed everything. The shopkeeper cornering a young girl, the boy stepping in, the shopkeeper striking first, and the boy defending himself. Vanessa turned to Sangwoo, triumph in her voice. Well, still think my feelings cloud my judgment. Sangwoo stared at the screen, his face unreadable. But his voice, when it came, was quiet. You were right. The words hung in the air like something fragile, almost impossible. Vanessa blinked, stunned, then softened. For once, he wasn't being sarcastic. He meant it. That night, long after the paperwork was filed and the boy released, Vanessa found herself at a street stall glowing with orange light. She sipped her coffee, savoring the warmth against the chilly night. She almost didn't notice when Sangwoo sat down across from her, his posture as stiff as ever. Well, this is unexpected, she said, raising an eyebrow. The Ice Man, joining me for late-night coffee? He didn't look at her right away. His hands curled around the cup, his gaze distant. There's something I should tell you. Vanessa tilted her head. Go on. He hesitated, then spoke, his voice low. When I first started in the force, I trusted a suspect's story. I believed him over the evidence. Because of that, a victim got hurt. Badly. I swore I'd never let it happen again. So I stopped listening to feelings. Stopped trusting. His throat tightened. Rules don't betray you the way people do. Vanessa's heart softened. For the first time, she saw the cracks in his armor, the man behind the ice. She leaned forward, her voice gentle. You're not cold, Sangwoo. You're protecting yourself, but you don't have to do it alone. Their eyes met across the small table, and the air between them shifted. Less like two people clashing, more like two people carrying the same weight in different ways. She smiled faintly. Besides, if you freeze up too much, who's going to stop me from breaking all your rules? The corner of his mouth twitched, the barest hint of a smile. Someone has to keep you in line. Vanessa chuckled softly, raising her cup. Good luck with that. And for the first time, Lim Sangwoo clinked his cup against hers. That night something had shifted between them because the next morning at the precinct, their colleagues had also noticed it too. Not in obvious ways, but in the subtleties. Vanessa no longer rolled her eyes at Sangwoo's rigid adherence to rules, and Sangwoo no longer dismissed her intuition out of hand. They spoke less like adversaries and more like people who had begun to understand each other. Captain Lee watched them with his usual piercing gaze before tossing a file onto their shared desk. You two have been put forward to lead the next case. Don't make me regret this. His tone was gruff, but there was a flicker of confidence in his eyes. Vanessa picked up the file, flipping through the details. Hostage situation. A disgruntled former employee armed, holding 3 people inside a small office building. She glanced at Sangwoo. This isn't small. Sangwoo nodded, already reading over her shoulder. It's not. Which is why the captain's testing us. We're not just running errands anymore. By the time they arrived at the site, flashing red and blue lights painted the glass exterior of the office building. Officers had set up a perimeter, and anxious families huddled behind barricades. The air buzzed with tension, radios crackling with clipped orders. Vanessa felt her chest tighten, not from fear, but from the gravity of it. The negotiator on site briefed them quickly. The suspect's name is Jang Sukman. Early 40s, fired last month for aggressive behavior. He's armed with a pistol, has 3 hostages, one of them injured. He's demanding reinstatement and money. Vanessa frowned. This sounds more like desperation than strategy. If he wanted money, he'd have asked for an escape plan. This is about being heard. Sangwoo glanced at her, then addressed the negotiator. We'll take it from here. The man hesitated, then nodded, stepping aside. Vanessa adjusted the headset they'd given her, her voice steady as she was patched into the line connected to the office phone. Mr. Jang? My name is Vanessa. I just want to talk to you. The reply came sharp and angry. There's nothing to talk about. They ruined my life, and now they'll pay for it. Don't try to trick me. Vanessa leaned against the hood of a patrol car, closing her eyes briefly, listening not just to his words but the strain beneath them. It must have felt unfair, she said gently, to give so much to a place and then feel discarded. Like they didn't care about you at all. The line was quiet for a long beat before his ragged breathing filled the silence. You don't know what it's like. 20 years, and they tossed me out like garbage. While she spoke, Sangwoo stood just behind her, headset tuned in, quietly coordinating with the tactical team. He signaled to officers to move into better positions, his calm voice keeping the growing tension under control. His role was strategy, hers connection. And somehow, it balanced perfectly. Vanessa's voice lowered. I may not know your exact pain, but I know what it's like to feel abandoned, to feel like no one sees you. But I see you now, Mr. Jang, and I want to help you walk out of this alive. Not for the company that hurt you, but for yourself. His voice broke, the anger faltering into something more fragile. They'll never take me back. No, Vanessa agreed softly. And maybe they shouldn't, but that doesn't mean your life ends here. The people inside, they're scared. They have families. You still have the power to choose what kind of man you'll be when you walk out that door. The silence stretched again, heavier this time. Then came the sound of a choked sob through the line. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I just wanted them to know I mattered. Sangwoo gave a subtle hand signal to the team, holding them back for just a moment longer. He met Vanessa's eyes, giving her the space to finish. You do matter, she said firmly. And the way to prove it isn't with violence. It's with mercy. Put the gun down, let them go, and show them you're bigger than what they did to you. There was the faint scrape of metal against a desk, the shifting of footsteps, and then a hostage's voice crying out. He put the gun down. The officers moved swiftly, breaching the building and escorting the hostages out. Jang Sukman stumbled out moments later, hands raised, tears streaking his face. The crowd behind the barricade erupted in relieved cheers, but Vanessa only let out the breath she hadn't realized she was holding. She glanced at Sangwoo, who gave her a single nod, silent, steady, but filled with something deeper than approval. Trust. Hours later, after the paperwork, the debriefs, and the endless questions from superiors and reporters, the station finally quieted. On the rooftop, the city stretched out in glowing lines of neon and headlights, the night breeze tugging at their clothes. Vanessa leaned against the railing, her coffee cup warm between her hands. We did good today. Sangwoo stood beside her, his gaze fixed on the skyline. You did more than good. You reached him in a way none of us could have. If it had been just me out there, he exhaled softly, I don't know if it would have ended the same. She nudged his shoulder with hers, smiling faintly. You underestimate yourself. Your calm kept the whole team steady. Without you, I would have drowned in his emotions. For a moment, they let the silence linger, the city humming below. Then Sangwoo turned, his expression gentler than she had ever seen it. You make me see things differently, Vanessa. Not everything has to be rules and structure. You remind me there's more. Her eyes softened. And you remind me to slow down, to think, to remember that instincts and heart aren't enough on their own. They both looked back toward the city. After a while, Vanessa's voice broke the quiet, softer than the wind. Funny, isn't it? How the city looks so peaceful from up here, when we both know it's not. Sangwoo followed her gaze. Maybe that's why we do this. To protect at least a piece of that peace. She turned to him with a faint smile. You really believe that? For the first time in a long while, he admitted. His tone wasn't cold anymore. There was warmth there, fragile but real. Vanessa stepped closer, her eyes steady on his. You know, for someone who claims to live by rules, You've been talking about feelings a lot these days. A faint smirk tugged at his lips, reluctant but real. Maybe you're a bad influence. Or a good one, she countered. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was heavy with meaning. Sangwoo let out a quiet breath, the kind that felt like release. Vanessa, he said at last, her name carrying a weight it hadn't before. She looked at him expectantly, but he only shook his head, almost shy. Nothing. Just thank you. For not giving up on me. Her smile was soft, certain. Guess that makes us partners in more ways than one. For once, Sangwoo didn't look away. His eyes held hers, and in the space between them lived an unspoken truth, a promise neither of them was ready to say aloud. The rooftop lights flickered, and far below, the city carried on, unaware of the shift between its two detectives. Side by side, they stood in the quiet night, not just colleagues anymore, but something far stronger. It had been 2 months since Vanessa officially became Sangwoo's partner. Time had slipped by almost unnoticed, each case blurring into the next, each day filled with late-night stakeouts, hurried meals, and quiet laughter that came easier than either of them expected. Somewhere in those weeks, she realized Seoul no longer felt like a city she was just passing through. It had begun to feel like home, because of him. On a Tuesday morning, while sipping lukewarm coffee at her desk, her phone buzzed with an email that made her heart skip. The International Task Force was offering her a position, a career-defining opportunity. Excitement and dread tangled inside her. She had worked years for this moment, yet her first thought wasn't celebration. It was Sangwoo. He noticed her frozen expression. Bad news? He asked, leaning casually against her desk. She shook her head slowly. Not bad. Just complicated. His brows furrowed. Complicated how? Vanessa hesitated, her fingers tightening around her phone. They want me on the International Task Force. It's everything I've been working for, but it means leaving Seoul. The silence between them was heavy. Sangwoo's expression barely shifted, but his eyes, those steady, searching eyes, betrayed a flicker of something she couldn't name. That's big, he finally said, his voice calm, too calm. Congratulations. The word stung more than it should. Thanks, she murmured, though her chest felt hollow. Before either of them could say more, the call came in. A missing elderly woman, last seen wandering her neighborhood in the early morning hours. Vanessa welcomed the distraction, grateful to lose herself in routine, though the news of her departure lingered between them like a shadow. The drive was quiet at first, the hum of the engine filling the air. Vanessa stared out the window at the bustling streets. She has dementia, she said quietly, scanning the case file. Her daughter said she sometimes thinks she's going to the market from 20 years ago. Sangwoo nodded, his gaze fixed on the road. That means she could be anywhere she remembers as familiar. We'll have to retrace her memories, not just her steps. Vanessa glanced at him, struck again by his way of understanding people. For him, solving cases wasn't just about evidence, it was about empathy. About listening. Hours passed as they combed through neighborhoods, asking shopkeepers, reviewing security footage, following the faintest trails. At a small park, Vanessa leaned against a lamppost, catching her breath. Do you remember our first case together? She asked with a wry smile. How could I forget? Sangwoo said. You were so annoyed with me. I still am, he replied, though a smile tugged at the corner of his lips. But I've learned to expect it now. Their eyes met, and for a heartbeat the world shrank to just the two of them. Then his phone rang, shattering the moment. Another witness, another lead. They hurried on. By evening, fatigue pressed down on them. Vanessa rubbed her temples, worry gnawing at her. She's been missing all day, Sangwoo. What if? We'll find her, he interrupted firmly, his hand brushing her shoulder in reassurance. We always do. And they did. Near an old bus stop, they found the woman sitting quietly, clutching a worn shopping bag, murmuring about buying vegetables for her family. Relief swept over them as they knelt beside her, speaking gently until she allowed them to escort her home. That night, as they filed the final report, the unspoken truth loomed larger than ever. Vanessa was leaving. The next morning, Sangwoo drove her to the airport. Dawn painted the sky pale, the air cool and still. Neither spoke much, the silence heavy, not hostile, just filled with words neither dared to say. At the departure gate, Vanessa turned to him. Her throat tightened at the sight of his composed face, his hands shoved deep in his pockets as if holding himself together. I don't know what to say, she whispered. You don't have to, he said. Then, softer. If you go, I'll wait. If you stay, I'll be here. The simplicity of it undid her. Her eyes burned, and she blinked hard to keep tears at bay. With a trembling smile, she whispered, Guess I'll have to keep you waiting then. She turned, walking toward the gate, her steps heavier than she expected. At the final checkpoint, she looked back. He was still there, standing tall, watching her with that steady gaze she had come to know so well. Their eyes locked across the distance. No promises spoken, yet everything understood. She boarded the plane with her heart aching, but the look they shared promised their story wasn't over. 8 months later, Seoul felt quieter without her laughter echoing through the precinct halls. Sangwoo had slipped back into routine, though sometimes he caught himself turning to share a thought only to realize she wasn't there. Her absence didn't feel like an ending, it felt like a pause. One evening, as he left the station, his phone buzzed. A message lit up the screen. Guess who's coming back to Seoul for a visit? Sangwoo's lips curved into a rare, unguarded smile. He typed quickly, "I'll be waiting, just like I promised." And for the first time in months, the city lights seemed brighter.